A disproportionate number of black men are being taken advantage of overseas. And I just want to talk about it today. This is not an indictment against black men. It's sort of a wake-up call. Just what I'm seeing, what I'm living, what I'm experiencing over here. It may be because most of the men that I see over here and deal with in close proximity are black. But the numbers don't lie, guys. You know, y'all hear all these horror stories that I tell. The majority of them are black men.
That opening clip comes from African-American YouTuber Sunshine Shoulders. He lives in the Philippines. And the video he produced earlier today was called Attention Passport Bros. A disproportionate number of black men are being taken advantage of overseas. Now, I found that to be quite interesting because we only hear about the good stories of black men going overseas, whether it's Zoom to Thailand, who's living in Thailand, or other brothers in Brazil, or brothers in Dominican Republic, or brothers in Costa Rica. Black men are finding a new way of life in Colombia. For the most part, we're hearing good stories, but we never talk about the fact that black men are being taken advantage of. Now, we do hear about stories of black men being robbed or black men being scammed, but being taken advantage of is something that we really don't hear a lot about. And that means, for the most part, being used. Are being used by who? Now, I want to play this first particular clip from Brother Sunshine Shoulders, and then we're going to come back.
One of the reasons, the big reasons that I believe so many of us are being taken advantage of, or at least they're trying to take advantage of us, is because we're trying to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing. We know our reputation and our image around the world. It's a bad one, it's a wrong one. But what we want to do is erase that. We try to shatter those images. And a lot of times we overcompensate. You know, we have something to prove as providers. You know, they say we're absent fathers. So we overcompensate. We spend a lot more money than we should. We end up getting in a lot of jackpot situations, you know, whether it involves the visa, getting married. I just said money, you know, just taking on a lot of unnecessary responsibility overseas. I'm not just talking about the Philippines. There's horror stories all over the world. But we've got a reputation problem, and a lot of this is subconscious. And we're just trying to prove it to be wrong, you know, about us being promiscuous, you know, we're easy. So that's really the main reason, the first thing I believe hinders us when we travel overseas. We come face to face with that reputation and we're trying to disprove it. And so we overcompensate.
Now, the first thing that he says is very important is that a lot of black men are concerned about the negative stereotype that they have around the world. And the negative stereotype is the African-American male stereotype, that they're not responsible, they don't take care of their women, they're having kids out of wedlock, and pretty much that bad reputation, that stigma has followed us from the United States to someplace else. And because of that, we're overcompensating for that particular stigma. So when we come across the women, we're trying to over provide. When we come across friends, we're trying to over provide. And so what happens with that is people start to look at you as a sucker. And I can tell you that living in Uganda, I've experienced what he's talking about. Not necessarily me personally, but I've heard horror stories of guys out here who spent $300,000, bought people houses. I mean, you name it. I'm talking about really getting milk dry just for the fact that they were trying to overcompensate. And they're trying to prove a point with their finances that they're actually different than what the stigma is. And when I thought about this, it reminded me of an old documentary called How to Sell to the Negro. And this documentary is the same thing that he's talking about. And I wanted you to know, I want to ask you, do you believe that this particular documentary I'm going to play is in line of what he's talking about? Let's play that clip.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer.
Now, guys, it seems so familiar of what he's talking about. A black man overcompensating, just like a black man in the 50s or even now when shopping for brands in the store is trying to overcompensate for his particular stereotype, trying to overcome the stereotype to people who typically don't even give a damn about him, right? But I want to play this second clip and I'm going to come back.
And that kind of brings us to the next thing that I see. We have a low self-worth, a low self-esteem. That comes from, all the years of being told you're nothing. The images and all of that play out on television, in the movies, in real life. So we have a low self-esteem, so we end up settling for things that far less than what we deserve. Look, guys, don't settle for anything that you don't absolutely want, 100%. But we're settling because of our low self-esteem, our low self-worth. You're good enough, but we're being used, man, at a disproportionate number overseas, and I see it. This is a wake-up call. All the passport bros traveling around the world looking for love, looking for relationships, man. We've got a target on our backs, guys, and y'all don't even know it. I'm the only one that's going to tell you. I'm the only one with balls enough to talk about it. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm trying to wake you up. A lot of this stuff is subconscious, so you don't even see it. But I see it because I'm paying attention. But the next thing, and from what I see, a lot of us, we're seen as desperate over here. And, that just ties into the low self-esteem and low self-worth. And they said, well, you ought to be happy with whatever you get overseas and however you're treated. You should be thankful somebody's even wanting you because they don't want you over there. Trust me, they know about us around the world. They know more about us than we know about ourselves. And this video is just a flashing red light to guys because a lot of the people who are coming over here, let's just keep it on the Philippines since this is where I am. This is their first time overseas. They've never traveled overseas. They don't know what life is really like outside of their comfort zone, outside of their cities and states. They think everything is the same here as it is everywhere else. They don't know what signs to look for. A lot of us are older, so we seem like we're in a hurry. We're rushing to do things that you have no business rushing into.
Now, the second clip ties in to what occurred in the first clip. And he's saying that a lot of black men just have a lot of low self-worth. A lot of black men don't understand that we have a lot of targets on our back. And there are a lot of older black men there, right? So a lot of these guys have money. A lot of these guys are trying to move fast. A lot of these guys don't understand that a lot of people know about you more than you think. And they know that you do have money. They know that you are retired. And some of these people are looking to use you. And it's not just women. I mean, anybody living overseas, a lot of times, it's hard to make friends with local men because they always have problems. Not all of them, but you can come across people who have problems. You can come across people who are begging for money, looking to use you. And it ties back into the fact that if you have low self-worth, even if the women in your own community trying to get away from them, that low self-worth is going to follow you. And he even mentioned it. Listen, you've been told that you're not worth anything. You should be happy with whatever you're getting. But like I said, if the black man is going to change his own self-image, it's going to be a lot easier for him to do it in his own community where he has ownership, or maybe on the continent of Africa where he has a chance. And when you're trying to go to a group of people that you don't know, these are not your people, trying to impress them is not even going to help you, because they're never going to change their mind about you. As long as black people around the world are at the bottom of the barrel, you're always going to have problems like this. And the main people that you should want to try to prove something to is, number one, yourself, and working with your people. And even though you're looking to get another opportunity, if you're not careful, you can also get used someplace else. But this is why black men need to control their image, and black men need to have ownership of what they do. And that's why it's so important to work with black people all over to change this. And I feel bad for any brothers overseas getting scammed, getting used. I know in the Philippines, you can't outright own houses or even outright own businesses. You must partner with foreigners. And I just heard some terrible things about that. And it's sad to know that a lot of older black men are retiring to the Philippines and then coming across these ladies that, some of these guys think that love them, and then they're just getting used and abused and then maybe returning back home broke. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of the Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all of you. Discovery the bell. We're out.